Now, still ahead, part two of our conversation with the governor concerning our weather woes here in Oklahoma and his vision for the state going forward. But first, Senate Minority Leader Kay Floyd and House Minority Leader Emily Virgin and their take on what's been accomplished since the session convened back on February 4th.
I think it was a productive session. I think we had a lot of discussion on a lot of really important issues. Education, of course, was front and center, as it should be. My caucus was a little disappointed. The State Department of Ed has told us that they were going to need about $400 million, and they got about half of that. So we're looking not only at this year, but the last 10 years when education has been cut. So we were hopeful to get more than the $200 million that was allotted. But overall, it's a good start.
Well, I think it was a pretty mixed bag. We took some steps on criminal justice reform, but once again, I think we saw a lot of the status quo get in the way of some of the much bigger steps that we could have taken, like cash bail reform and some sentencing reform. Overall, I think the biggest thing that we talk about and that we do every year is the budget, and kind of a mixed bag there as well. The biggest disappointment for the House Democratic Caucus was that we left $200 million sitting on the table to put that into the rainy day fund when we already will have close to $1 billion in that fund by the end of the year. This was a year that we could truly invest in a lot of core services, and we missed that opportunity.
When we're talking about education, it's not just K through 12. Higher education has been cut drastically over the last decade, and so we need to have the big picture of all education. Also, our career techs need support because not everybody's cut out for college. So we'd like to see, and we'd like to present a big picture plan for education. We're hopeful we'll continue to get more funding in the classrooms for K through 12. It's not just the teacher pay raise. That's appreciated, but a lot of teachers will tell you they'd rather see the money go into the classroom. They need books, they need support staff, they need teacher aides, they need counselors. So we need a big picture look at it, and State Department of Ed's done a good job of sort of laying out what we could do to move us forward.
It's always good when we put more money into education and when we can give a teacher pay raise. What I'll say though is that we're still very far behind where we should be in education in terms of funding. When we go back and look at 2007, 2008, we're still funding much lower than we were at that point in time. And it's important to look at the states around us. So we give a $1,200 teacher pay raise, but then Texas recently passed a $5,000 teacher pay raise. Almost every state around us is passing a teacher pay raise larger than ours. So it's disappointing that we left that money sitting on the table when we could have given a larger teacher pay raise, we could have put more money into the classroom.
There's a lot left on the table. Retroactivity passed, which was good. That was a bill that needed to go. But there were a lot of bills and a lot of issues that we still need to address. Chris Steele gave a great closing statement at the end of session about what's left to be done, and he's absolutely right. We've got to include in the discussion above and all, in my view, the way the courts are funded. Because you can't talk about criminal justice reform without discussing funding of the courts, because a lot of the fines, fees, and assessments in the criminal cases go through the system to help fund the courts. We need to get away from that. The Supreme Court, all the courts underneath need to be appropriated. And kudos to Senator Roger Thompson for seeing that and starting that process. So he did a great job on that.
So for many years now, we've heard this is the year that we're going to truly accomplish true criminal justice reform and take those big steps that we need to take in terms of not just lowering how many people we currently incarcerate, but slowing the growth. So those are the two things that we've been trying to do for a long time. And it seemed that we went into this session with a lot of momentum. We know that the voters support this. We know that the public supports it. They took the first big step with the passage of State Question 780. So we passed the retroactive application of State Question 780, which is a good step in the right direction. But what we really need to do is focus on putting people away on these sentences that are very harsh compared to the crime that they actually committed.
Working with Pro Tem Treat was productive. We had a lot of productive discussions. He was very respectful of our views. Of course, he and I don't agree on very many things, but policy-wise, but we were able to work well together, and he was very receptive to visiting and to keeping me informed of things that were going on.
I think there were a few highlights. I think, we did take some steps, like I said, on criminal justice reform. Passing the retroactive application of State Question 780 was a bipartisan effort, and that was a welcome thing. After the last few sessions, we've been going back and forth, a lot of partisan back and forth, so coming together on this issue was really important for us.